Boom. Good afternoon, folks. Today I'm going to read chapter 4 from my Tradesman Survival Guide book. I'm going to read chapter 4 to yourself, which is about issuing invoices and getting paid. So hopefully if you watch this video for a few minutes, you will be able to take a few nuggets that will help you improve your business and make more money. If you want to get a copy of my book, The Tradesman Survival Guide, go to my website, joedoyle.ie/TSG, where you can pre-order it there. And it will simply change your life. Simple as that. If you don't want to go, excuse me, if you don't want to go and get a copy of my book, please watch this video. I'm going to read a part of the chapter 4 to you, and it is most definitely going to change your life. Okay, the minute I start working with a client on their business, in the same way an apex predator sniffs out prey, I'm all over this end of things immediately. So the minute I start working with somebody, I'm like, where's the money that's owed into the company? And is there any money that's not invoiced that needs to be invoiced straight away? Everything else has to take a back seat. We have to get onto this straight away because we need to get the money into the company absolutely immediately. Clients have hired me to work with them on their business, and when I start looking at their invoices and finances, I actually can't sleep until I get a handle on it. It scares me the lack of urgency that some business owners have when it comes to their invoicing and money management. So it scares me to see the lack of urgency these guys have about their own money management. Regardless of what you're doing in your business, every hour of every day, if you aren't issuing invoices or acting in a manner to get you closer to issuing an invoice, you are in real trouble and you need to tackle this immediately. And like the items discussed in the earlier chapters, this is not actual rocket science. It's not that difficult to do. It's just something that must be done differently from how you've done it before. So let's dive into it and get things sorted for you guys. You might have seen some of the videos of the previous chapters that I've read. I've basically spent the last little while here in this beautiful villa in Spain to get this thing written, because I just needed to be away from distractions. And we've got a rock breaker on the end of a digger over there that's absolutely driving me nuts all day. So I'm hoping you can't hear that, and if you do, roll with me. It'll be worthwhile to stick through here, you know. So regardless of what you're doing every day, so like you either need to be issuing invoices or getting yourself closer to issuing invoices. Other than that, you're just wasting your time. We have the guy who issues multiple invoices per day, say a plumber doing call outs, and then we have a lad who does maybe 50k extensions and refurbs. So there will be a difference in the process that works for them, but there will be no absence of a process. So the biggest issue here is the absence of a process for many business owners. And if you're running a process that's not correct, we can refine it. But if you've got no process, that's the problem there. For the multiple invoice per day operator, there is only one way that you can correctly issue your invoices, and that is by doing them at the end of every day. I know for a fact that the guy who does many call outs but does not issue his invoices at the end of the day, he is missing out on invoices and he is forgetting about them altogether. The reason being, he is working on a volume of call outs, and as such there's no way for sure that he can guarantee he doesn't miss out on any invoice. This is coupled with the fact that many of these type of jobs will be labour only jobs, and there will be no invoice from the supplier to refresh his memory later on. You need to set your alarm for a certain time every day and flick through the diary and issue every invoice on that day. I recommend you use Invoice to Go, or at least an accounts package that has an app that you can create the invoice on your phone. Creating the invoice is not the same as issuing the invoice to a client. So if you do a job and for whatever reason the job does not get finished on the day as planned, you must still create the invoice that day, but simply don't issue the invoice to the client. The invoice will appear on your app as not sent to the client, but at least you won't forget about it then. Never leave anything down to memory. Always rely on the system or process you are using. So we don't rely on memory for anything. When I ask business owners what part of their business they struggle with, they usually say, the admin and all that. Okay, so I then ask what area of the admin, and then they say the taxes and the invoices. Well, we've got our accountant for the taxes, but we need you for the invoices. The truth of the matter is, the only reason they are struggling with the invoice side of things is because they are simply not doing it, while at the same time being well aware that the invoicing needs to be done. So they're not doing it, but they know it needs to be done, and that's what's stressing them out. If you think it's a big deal to raise an invoice, here's a little exercise for you to do. Take out your phone and download Invoice to Go. Now, see how long it takes you to create your first invoice. I guess it will take 5 minutes, and that's because you need to create the account, create the customer, and then create the invoice. If you were using this app on the regular and you had the customer already created, you would create an invoice in less than 60 seconds. So when people get bogged down by not issuing their invoice, when people say they're getting bogged down by not issuing their invoice, I genuinely feel sorry for them, as it's definitely holding back the business, and yet it's such a simple thing to tackle. If you're working on doing call-outs, or if you mostly do bigger jobs but call-outs as another service for clients all the time, if you're working on doing call-outs, or if you mostly do bigger jobs but call-outs as another service for different clients all the time, there's only one way to do your invoicing and collecting of the payments. So basically, if you're doing big jobs, or if you're doing call-outs all the time and they're for the same client, the only way to do it is to set up a Stripe account to accept payment via card, and tell the client before you call them how much the charge will be and that you need to be paid while you're there. It's as simple as that. You don't want to be using up any unnecessary resources chasing money down the line later on. This will take the goodness out of the job, and the longer it goes on, the less likely you are to get paid. For companies that issue bigger invoices in the thousands and tens of thousands, I always recommend that you issue your invoice on day one of the job, and they issue the invoice for the full contract price. So say for example it's a 100k job, my advice would be to issue the invoice for 100k on day one and allow the client to pay off the invoice in installments. I would also be asking them to confirm receipt of the invoice and that everything is in order with the invoice on day one. If you're doing what most people are doing and issuing an invoice every time you're looking to get paid, you leave yourself exposed to someone saying to you that there was an issue with the invoice and that's the reason why payment is now delayed. Get the invoice issued at the start and let them make payments on account of that invoice. It also means that when you're going through your accounts, there will be less sales invoices and it's less likely to cause any confusion. When it comes to getting paid, when it comes to getting or agreeing a payment schedule, I strongly recommend that you take your profit up front on day one with your first installment. There is never any issue with getting paid the first installment, and the issues only ever arise later on with the payments towards the end of the job. If you're doing a 60k job and you expect to make a 12 grand profit on that entire job, and you have installment arrangements of 20, 20, 10, 10, I strongly recommend that you take 6k from both the first and second installments and you set them aside. You must take your profit first, which means if there's a problem with the job, and let's face it, there's more of a risk not getting paid in the construction game than anywhere else. Either way, if there's a problem with the job and the clients want to hold back money, at least they will be holding back their money and not yours. Take the profit first, set it aside, and once the job finishes nicely and everyone is happy, you can then spend the profit. I've seen instances many times where there was an issue with the job and the builder goes all in on trying to fix it, a considerable additional expense to himself as he wants to keep the client happy, only for the client to turn around and say that they want to be compensated by way of a reduction in price on account of the inconvenience. So there might be a problem with the job, the builder goes all in, puts extra resources in to get the job finished, get it over the line. The client then turns around and says, the builder doesn't be charging them for the extra they've put in. The client then turns around and says, actually, I don't want to be paying you at a agreed price because the job has took far longer and I want money back for inconvenience. If payments are delayed, it's usually a warning sign, and I would always recommend that the minute this happens, you contact the client directly and explain to them that you need to get money for the wages. So if the delays aren't resolved by the end of the week, you'll need to nip off and do another job, and you can come back to them whenever the issues are resolved. Don't say it or handle it in any cheeky or confrontational way. You just need to explain that you're sorry, but there's nothing you can do as the money is not there to cover the staff's wages, and you need to bring in some extra works to cover the cost. Never allow yourself to get involved in a situation where you are cash flowing other people's projects. It doesn't make a difference how long you've been working for them or how sound they are. If you have 30k in the company account and you are owed in 70k, that means in order for you to get 90k in the bank, you will need to be owed in 210k based on those ratios. So if you have 30k in the bank and you're owed in 70 and you want to get 90k, well, based on the way you're operating, you're going to need to have a multiple of 3 from what's in the account versus what's owed in. What's that thing on around? A leaf there. So we don't want to run our business like that. The other problem operating on this basis, where you allow yourself to be used as a bank for clients or main contractors, is the bigger your company grows and the more profitable it becomes, the more likely it will be that all of the cash owed in will belong to the company and not be owed out. This means that you are less likely to chase it as much as if you would if you owed it out. So if the money's owed, that's owed in, it's just all your money and you don't owe it out, it's great that it's all yours. But the problem is you're going to be if you're bad enough to let it build up like that, you're definitely not going to get it in when it's all owed to you. I always recommend that you operate your business. This is a tricky thing to master, right? I always recommend that you operate your business on the basis of no more than 50% of the bank balance being owed in. Some business owners will think this is impossible to achieve, while others will say it's no problem. The difficulty is for the guys who believe that it is impossible to do. They do not realise that other people are already running their businesses in this fashion. I'm not saying don't issue invoices in this instance. In fact, it's the complete opposite. What I'm saying is work harder to keep the cash reserves and work even harder to get paid. So it's one thing doing the job, but you need to work hard to get paid as well. And make sure, you know, if you've got 100 grand in the bank, the maximum amount that you allow yourself to be owed in at any given time is 50 grand. And if you maintain that ratio, it just means that you won't allow your debts, the amount of money that's owed in, to run away on you, you know. Now, extras on works. This is a big one. If you're thinking you can't, now remember I said on a big job, issue your invoice on day one. If you're thinking you can't issue an invoice on day one of the job, as this doesn't account for any extras that would be incurred, and as we know there are always extras on jobs, it is usually here that the issue of the payment arises. So the problems always arise with the extras. So here's how I feel I can best protect yourself against this. At the start of the job, you should get a signed agreement from the client confirming acknowledgement of the scope, price and terms and conditions. Within the terms and conditions there should be a note to advise that this is a fixed price contract, and removal of any aspects of works does not necessarily mean the price will be reduced. It should also state that any additions to the work schedule will be done by way of a separate agreement. Hear that? Any additional work or any changes to the work schedule will be done by way of a separate agreement and must be paid for in full at the time of order commencement. What this means is that the main job is the main job and there will be no variations on this, but any extra works requested will be quoted for, signed for and paid for in full at time of commencement. So let's say you're doing a job for a client and it's 50k and they ask you to change some lights for them at an additional cost of 2 grand. The client will have no problem paying you in full for the lights at the time of the order commencement if they still owe you the guts of 50k. By you implementing this system, there can be no confusion over costs and extras later on. You see, when I hear people tell me about a trauma on a job that resulted in them not getting paid, I view the fact that they didn't get paid as the problem, but not as the symptom. Okay, I view the fact that they didn't get paid not as the problem, but as the symptom of something that went on earlier on in the business. So the fact that you're not getting paid is not the exact problem. Something happened early on that is now allowing you, that now has you in a situation where you're not getting paid. Either the client was not explained to fully, or they were explained to fully, but you didn't follow it up in writing, and now there's some wriggle room on the negotiation later on. Personally, I find the most insulting thing anyone can do to a business owner is to negotiate on a job after it has been completed. And the only way a business owner can protect against this is to have everything documented correctly in writing in advance of any works commencing. A powerful line to include in any email when discussing scope or costs is, can you please confirm by reply that you're happy to proceed on this basis? So in this part, I just read out this part of the chapter here to you. Like, we're talking about getting paid and eliminating the possibility of clients not trying to pay, because nobody really starts off with the intention. Well, on the domestic, when dealing with the public, nobody really starts off with the intention of not paying you. But what happens is sometimes they mismanage their money, sometimes things go wrong, costs run over, they haven't allowed for certain things, and then the pressure builds, and when the pressure builds, they start looking for things to complain about. Not intentionally, they don't even realise they're doing this, but they get, oh, we can't be having that, we can't be having that. So the way we protect ourselves is we have these things in place. So I've got a couple of documents there that's part of this book, The Tradesman Survival Guide. Go to my website, joedoyle.ie/TSG. pre-order a copy of the book there, and when you get the book there will be all these resources in. So you'll have a contract you can sign, you'll have a sign-off docket, you'll have initial site inspection, you'll have this documentation here so that you can bring them into the fabric of your business, and the possibility of you not getting paid will be reduced dramatically there. This is what we done in our business, and we refine it all the time, better and better. That's a part of chapter 4 that I've just read to yourself there, which is about issuing invoices and getting paid. It's my plan to have this book pretty much in the hands of every tradesman in the country. I want it on every van belonging to every tradesman in the country on the dashboard, so they can have a look and they can flick through, and when they're seeing things, and they can implement these processes into the business. So this book is not for me. It's not written for me. The information is not for me. I know the information. I'm gone out of the game. I could exit the game because I implemented this information. This information is for you. So go to my website, joedoyle.ie/TSG, get a copy of that and start to implement these things into your business. Thank you for watching, guys. Hopefully you found that useful, and I'll see you at the top.